Welcome to Bloodthirsty Forest, where terrifying stories, buried secrets, and screams lost in the night come back to life. If you crave spine-chilling tales, journeys with no return, and truths that keep you awake, then you've found your home. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next horrifying tale. Because one day, you might just become the next character in the story. Now stay quiet and step into the bloodthirsty forest. On 2nd November 1987, three hikers were reported missing near Black Hollow, a rarely visited ravine in Montana notorious for its brutal winters and whispering winds. The men Jacob Rollins, Trevor Finch, and Eric Bell had set out 5 days earlier on what was meant to be a routine autumn trek before the first heavy snowfall. They were last seen at a gas station in Helena, where they bought canned food, flares, and maps. None of them were ever supposed to return. But 6 days later, Eric Bell stumbled out of the woods into a ranger's outpost 20 miles from Black Hollow. He was barefoot, bloodied, and naked except for a shredded thermal jacket that didn't belong to him. His eyes were wide open but unfocused, and he was muttering over and over. "Don't look behind the trees. Don't look when the fire speaks." The ranger who found him said Eric's skin was so cold he seemed preserved in ice. His fingernails were missing. He had wounds that looked like bite marks, but the pattern didn't match any known animal. His tongue had been partially chewed off, and his feet were blackened from frostbite. He wouldn't talk for the first 36 hours. Then, around midnight on the second day, Eric began to tell his story, disjointed at first, but then with growing clarity. The doctor treating him started taking notes. Those notes were sealed in a report labeled psychotic trauma, potential hallucinogenic exposure. What Eric described, however, couldn't be explained by trauma alone. We went into Black Hollow on 28 October. The air already felt wrong by the time we passed the sign warning against overnight camping in the ravine. We ignored it. Trevor laughed and said, "Ghost stories don't scare mountain men." We should have turned around when we found the first set of bones. They were stacked, not scattered. Clean bones. No meat, no blood. Just a spiral of ribs and a skull with holes gouged through the eye sockets. Jacob said it was probably a bear kill that scavengers had cleaned up. But the bones weren't old, they were white, fresh, like they'd been boiled. We pressed on, made camp by a dying creek that didn't freeze even though the temperature was below zero. That night, none of us slept. The forest was too quiet. No crickets. No wind. Just the popping of the fire and a sound that started around 2 a.m. A voice. At first, we thought it was the wind in the trees. But it wasn't. It was speaking words, fragmented, whispery things like, "Don't turn around, he's behind the flame, meat walks on 2 legs." Jacob got up and walked into the woods with his flashlight. He didn't come back. We searched until dawn. All we found was his flashlight jammed between the roots of a tree. Its bulb had melted into the plastic casing. That day we hiked back north, trying to retrace our steps. But the landscape didn't match the maps anymore. The trees looked wrong, too tall, too twisted. We kept walking in circles, ending up at the same creek, the same fire pit, no matter which direction we chose. By the third night, we stopped pretending we weren't lost. That's when the thing came. It didn't make a sound, not at first. Just a shape at the edge of the firelight. Tall. Too tall. 7, maybe 8 feet. Covered in dark hair that seemed to move on its own, like seaweed underwater. Trevor screamed and threw a flare. For a moment, the whole clearing lit up red. There were 3 of them. Not animals. Not men. One of them bent forward, and its face shimmered like a reflection in water. It didn't have eyes. Just a grin that stretched from cheek to cheek. Trevor ran. I didn't see what happened, but I heard it. Bones snapping. Screaming that turned into gargling. Then silence. The next morning, his backpack was at the fire pit. It was zipped shut. Inside were his clothes, his boots, and his teeth. All of them laid out in a row. I started to go insane that day. I heard whispers every time I blinked. The trees leaned closer when I wasn't looking. At dusk, I saw Trevor standing across the creek. But he had no face. Just skin, smooth and pale like wax. He waved. I screamed until I passed out. When I woke up, the fire had gone out. But the ground was still warm. And that night the fire spoke. It rose on its own. No wood, no fuel. Just flame hovering in the center of camp. And it spoke in Jacob's voice. He walks where the roots drink red. He wears your name now. You left the door open. I ran. I ran for hours. Maybe days. I don't remember. I saw cabins that weren't there. A deer with human hands. A boy nailed to a tree singing in rivers. I drank water that tasted like metal. I slept once and woke up buried in snow, with footprints around me that led nowhere. Something followed me the whole way. Not footsteps, just breathing. Loud. Wet. The only reason I'm alive is because the ranger's fire wasn't real. It was already waiting for me when I arrived. But it hadn't lit yet. He pulled me in before it could speak. That thing, it wears their faces now. It knows their names. It knows mine. Eric Bell died 2 days later, during a seizure in his hospital bed. According to his nurse, his last words were, "There's something behind the mirror." Authorities launched a search and rescue effort for Jacob and Trevor, but no trace of them was found. Rangers who entered Black Hollow reported GPS systems failing, strange pressure in their heads, and intense nausea. One ranger was hospitalized after attempting to gouge out his own eyes. He survived, but would only say, "It smiled at me. It was wearing my uniform." As of today, Black Hollow remains closed to the public. The case is officially classified as unexplained disappearance. But locals still hear voices in the woods. And hikers still vanish, leaving behind only empty boots, burned-out flares, or footprints that end mid-step. If you ever find yourself in Montana and you see a fire with no smoke, don't go near it. And if it speaks your name, don't answer.